Good morning. Good morning. Let's go. Let's go the windy way today because we're early. Oh, it's a lovely day. It's a lovely spring day. Just had my birthday. I'm 66. I'm now officially in receipt of my old age pension. £900 every 4 weeks. And had a nice party. Had a bouncy castle. All the grandchildren round. So weather's not been brilliant, but it's been okay, you know. I've had a check flight in my plane. I've been signed off for another 2 years. So, providing I continue to pump money into it, technically it's not my plane, it's my daughter's plane, but I'm responsible for the costs of flying it. And, well, when I fly it anyway. So that was quite nice. Very nice flying instructor called Gary. He and I get on really well. Can't tell you much of what we talked about, to be honest, because when pilots get together, they tend to gossip about other pilots. Same as dentists, I suppose. Tend to gossip about other dentists. But anyway, no, we had a very quiet sort of end of April, beginning of May. It's starting to liven up again a bit, but they've just released the inflation figures, 3.5% annualised, which is nearly double what the Bank of England promised it is what it would be. So that tells me two things. One is that it tells me basically that they've got no way of achieving what the one job that they've got to do, the one thing, which is keep inflation at 2%. And they shouldn't even keep it at 2%. They should really keep it at 0%. Because who wants prices to go up 2% a year? Let's just get this plugged in. Yeah, their mandate is price stability, and price stability, most stability in my book is 0% change, not 2% change. I mean, you'd be a bit worried if you were up the top of a skyscraper with the architect and he said, no, it's perfectly stable, and you knew it was swaying 2% either side. You'd worry a bit about his grip on reality, wouldn't you? But 2% is was decided upon. I think it was decided upon in New Zealand, and it's spread through the world as the generally accepted figure that you can devalue the currency. It's the rate at which you can devalue the currency that people don't really make a fuss about the fact that their purchasing power is decreasing. If 1% is not sufficient for the government needs, because the government needs to print money out of nothing, ex nihilo, as I heard someone say the other day, and they need to print, say, 2% of the entire money supply every year. It suits them very nicely to spend, and the value of purchasing power of our money drops 2%, and we don't really notice. Unless, I mean, you watch, like I do, a lot of old telly, and you see people go in and buy a couple of large scotches and get a change out of £1. So then it hits home how much the money's devalued. Certainly since Nixon took away the link between the dollar and gold in 1971, purchasing power of the dollar has gone down 85%. So, but it's only oldies like us realise it, and we tend to go on and on about how our houses didn't cost much, and annoy youngsters who automatically assume that that's because we lived in a golden age where it was easy to buy a house and they were cheap as chips, whereas they live through a period where houses are expensive to buy. Whereas in fact that's not true at all. You know, the pound was worth so much more in the old days that you needed fewer of them to buy a house, so that's why house prices were lower. Houses have always been difficult to buy, always. I mean, they've gone through periods where there was mortgage interest relief at source, which is what my mother and father used, and I did to a certain extent to start. You know, we used to get tax relief on our mortgage payments, but they soon knocked that on the head. That was the home owning democracy. That was the vision of the people that set that up, and then they decided that, you know, enough people owned their homes, so and weren't having too much trouble buying them. So, because you could get a 0% mortgage in those days, or more typically, what you did was you got a 95% mortgage off the bank, and then a loan off the bank for 5% deposit. So effectively, the bank lent you the whole lot, but they didn't used to like calling it that. Anyway, I'm very lucky. I obviously, well, I know, you know, I mean, I've worked very hard my entire life. I've never been claimed a penny in Social Security or any of the sort of the what's the word, entitlement payments. I've always gone to work and made a profit and earned less when there wasn't much profit coming in, and obviously I'm earning less now that we're quiet. But when you get to sort of your mid-60s, you get to a point where you've got enough money coming in that really a downturn in one income stream is not really doesn't really bother you. You know, you're financially resilient enough to be able to cope. And so, like, for example, the pension coming in, this £900 every 4 weeks, is going to plug a lot of holes. And my mortgage finishing in September 15th, I think, means I'm not going to need to find £2,000 a month, which is difficult. You know, it's difficult to find that sort of money. Even as a dentist, it's difficult to find that sort of money. I mean, £24,000 is the sort of the median salary, and in my case, it's the median mortgage payment. I don't even know how I've done it. I honestly don't know how I've done it. In all the years up to now, it never really seemed to be that much of a problem. And yet now, these final 2, 3 or 4 payments, I'm thinking, where am I going to get the money from? You know, for the first time in my life. And that's even after, as I say, the depreciation of the pound means that what I'm paying them back is really not much. I think I'm paying them back less, taking into account inflation, than they've lent me. It's a clever guy called Jonathan in my year at dental school who explained this all to me. He said the bank always gets back more than they lend you, because if inflation goes up, they put interest rates up, and interest rates are always higher than inflation. So basically, they create the money out of nothing, ex nihilo, lend it to you, and then grow fat on the interest. And that's why being a bank is a license to print money, because that's what you literally do. You obviously don't print it anymore, but you just create it. Money and credit being the same thing. They lend you money on your credit card and then in overdraft and create money and lend it to you to buy your house. That's this stupid light. Why did it go red? There's nobody the other side, right? Why did it go red? There's no need. I think it's a fail-safe thing. It's so that if it fails, they both fail on red. But I mean, really, that's so, it interferes with the flow of traffic so much. I think and it's so reliable, these signs. I think that's a bit of a stupid idea now. Yeah, so I'm booked up all day today, which is Thursday, and tomorrow morning, which now I never work Friday afternoon, so tomorrow morning will be booked up pretty much. What I've done is I've used the time, and I always use the time to do something. And what I invite you to do is I invite you to think of all the things that you would do if only you had enough time, clear out the loft, blah, 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 whatever. And really just try and, when you get like a day when you've got no patience, try and just say, right, I'm going to use that day to do that thing. In my case, it's digitising all the family pictures. I've got a fantastic treasure trove of prints and slides and some, and basically slides. And obviously all the negatives associated with the prints as well. Now, you might say, well, why bother scanning the prints when you've got the negatives there? Why don't you just digitise the negatives? And you can do. I've got both ways of doing it. The way I'm digitising the prints is to put them through a high-speed scanner. I've got a second-hand Kodak i 1440, which is a very fast, more than one document a second scanner. It just goes ding, 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 and they go through. And what I do is I scan a batch of them and then put them in a bag with a reference number, and then I save them on the hard disk under that reference number with as much other information as I can, such as ideally, you index them by year. And the reason why it's better to do that is it's just literally faster. You can scanning negatives is very slow. I've got a Kodak scanner for negatives, and it's like a little box, and you push the slides or the negatives in one side, and then you click a button on the top, and it takes a picture of it. Literally, it's just a sensor with a light box underneath. And I would only use that for things that I haven't printed. So, for example, all the slides I put through the scanner. Now, scanning prints is not too difficult because it's quite obvious which way up they go, and you can't do them back to front. Whereas slides, you have to hold them up and work out which way to put them through, and it is possible to do them back to front, isn't it? So you can sometimes you find that you've scanned a slide and the writing's back to front, and that means then all the scenery's back to front and everything. But if you do it with the shiny side of the film towards the uppermost, and the matte side, which is the side with the emulsion on, down, then that's the right way to photograph. And the great thing is that if it's a holiday, for example, and you haven't got any details about, you might have the date of the holiday but not where you went, what you can do is you can use Google search now. So if there's a chateau or a bridge, town square or something, even a coastline, drag that photo onto Google, and it will tell you pretty much exactly where that photo was taken, which is great. And this is helped me tremendously with some of the holidays I went on when I was 14, 15, where I really wouldn't have been much involved in the route planning and that. Probably knew where I was that other day, but not, not 50 years later. So I've also, I took a load of slides of my honeymoon. I bought a camera and especially to take on the 35mm camera to take, especially, so I knew it was going to be the trip of a lifetime. So we took the slides, and we've got a slide projector and used to have slideshows and stuff like that. But the trouble is, and this is a general problem with data, is that data is no use if it's not accessible. So if you're, let's say, I don't know, to take a simple example, you want to see how much you spent on electricity 10 years ago and work out how much your electricity costs have gone up, or what your consumption was, or even what supplier you used then. That you may have been really good and saved all your old electricity bills, but then they will have perhaps ended up in the box in the loft. So the utility of that information, the usefulness of it, is outweighed by the effort required to obtain it. So for information to be useful, it has to be accessible. And the best type of information is digital, because it's very accessible. So for example, you can go to your personal folder on your network attached storage, and then go to utilities subfolder, and then electricity subfolder, and there you should have all your electricity bills. And if you preface each one by the date of the bill, they'll all be ordered automatically in date order, so you can open them all and look at them all, or just refer back a year, 5 years, 10 years, etc. And that will considerably enhance your decision making. This is sort of big data, and when I say big, I mean big. I mean, I have scanned tens of thousands of photos that are all now in indexed plastic bags, in plastic boxes, which will be retained, because in case anybody wants to refer to the original. And now I've made a start on the negatives and mainly the slides, and I have probably got over 1,000 slides, and they are quite slow to digitize, but because they're so old, I mean, we're talking about 40 years ago for the honeymoon plus. I haven't seen them for a while, because those of you who've ever taken slides know that the idea of, shall we have a slideshow? Shall I get out the projector? Shall I? And then you can put them in carousels, but very few of us have got so many carousels we can afford to keep a carousel for each set of slides. So there's a certain amount of reuse of carousels, and then just the time of setting it up, and also that to a certain extent there's the problem that everybody says, oh well, I can remember the last time I saw them, so there's not so much of joy in just trundling through them again. When every one that comes up, you think, oh yeah, I've seen that. But now they're digitized, they're great. People can pick and choose, they can flick through them. You can put just the best ones, there's a nice one of my brother when he was a baby, and you can pick the best example, of each thing. Excuse me. So that's time. So we're talking about time, organisation of time, aren't we? And data, how to store data. And I've said this before, but I always scan stuff. Actually, the nurses and receptionists scan it now and store it, file it, and they shred it. What you need is a little stamp that says scanned, and as soon as they've scanned it, they might put it in for payment if it's a bill, and then it gets paid and shredded. And the fact that it's been stamped scanned means that someone doesn't have to waste their time looking on the hard drive to see if it has been scanned before they shred it. They know that they can just stick it literally straight through the shredder. And the network attached storage is a Synology 1819 plus, and it has 8 drives in it, and each drive is 6 terabytes, I think. Because I was brought up on kilobytes and megabytes. I'm not very sure about gigabytes and terabytes, let alone exabytes and petabytes. But I think it's a 6 terabyte drives. So 8 6 terabyte drives is that, and if you did that, you'd have more than what I've got. And some of my drives are only 3 terabytes or 4 terabytes. But but then the problem is you need to buy another one, so you need to duplicate that setup. So I used my old network attached storage box for that, and that's a Synology DS 1815 plus. I've had an 1817 in the meantime, which is the one I use at home, and so I've got 24 hard drives on the go, not counting the half a dozen that are in the various computers that are around the building. So you can imagine I keep a 6 terabyte drive boxed up, ready, a new one boxed up and ready for when one fails, because they're only tolerant for one drive failure. If one drive fails, you need to get it out and get a new one in quick, so that the data can rebuild itself. If you were ever in the unfortunate position of having one fail, and then you go on Amazon and say, can you send me a drive? And they say, yeah, we've got one. It's being sent from Germany. We've popped it in the post, and it's a week before it arrives, say. And then it takes a day to rebuild, and in the meantime, you've got 8 days where a second drive could fail. Now, if a second drive fails, then you are in lumber, because it can't recover from a 2 drive failure. So then you'd have to restore from a backup, and that's why I've got my 1819 backing up to my 1815 every day. Well, yeah, every day, yeah. It does a separate master directory at a different time, but it does them all over the course of a day. It does them all. So if push came to shove, I could restore all my data, but as I say, it would have to fail in several different ways first before that was necessary. I'd need to have a 2 drive failure. Worst case scenario, somebody just broke into the business and stole the 2 NAS, in which case then I'd be reliant on the backup I've got at home, my 1817. So, but you have to, you've got to be a bit savvy about this. You've got to understand about computers. You have to understand about data. The guy before me didn't really understand anything about computers. He had a contract with a local computer firm to look after his computer system, and it was a terrible. I mean, they'd done a terrible job of looking after it. The software was all over the place. A lot of it was installed on the C drive in the root directory. Don't worry if you don't understand what I'm talking about, but it had like five antiviruses on it, because every time we got an free antivirus, he used to install it, and so it had it was so slow because of all this craft that was going on. So the only thing I could do, well, what happened was we asked them, the computer company, if they'd got a backup of his data, and they said that they're only contracted to maintain the computers, not to make sure that they back themselves up. And so at that point, we just instantly cancelled their contract and said, forget it. And I reformatted all the hard drives and started again. And ever since then, it's worked okay. Except on the odd occasion when you come in on the first of the month and it's every computer's backing itself up, and so we try and get in early, or after holidays try and get in early. First thing you do is turn the computers on and let them start sorting themselves out. And here we are, another day in paradise. A bit early. No, I'm not. 8:30. Good. Well, I hope you're well, and then that was a bit useful. I'm not going to give you tips on scanning slides because it's a bit esoteric, and but the codec thing is okay. It's not brilliant, but it's all right. So and it's less than 100 quid. So if you've got some old slides and stuff like that, get them accessible. Put them on a NAS and blow them onto a DVD or something and hand them out around the family, and then everybody can see photos that they will never have seen before. Photos of their great grandparents and stuff like that. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.